Greetings and welcome back to 𝕙𝕙𝕙𝕙 studio here in Leitrim's Iron Mountains. If you're new here, my name is Harriet. Today's video is another collaboration with a fellow artist and YouTuber, Dejans, over at his channel Deevz Zevde. Dejans is a Slovenian artist who creates imaginative and surreal pattern designs and abstract illustrations. This is my third YouTube collaboration with Dejans, and I'm really enjoying this series so far. It's always a surprise to receive Dejans' part of the artwork. Each piece has been so unique. For this piece, Dejans has sent me this wonderful illustration, a surreal abstraction of a cloud. I have brought it here into Photoshop, where I am formatting it for my printer. First to crop it into a tidy square, and then I have just raised the brightness and increased the contrast to get a nice sharp and clean image for my printer. I'm printing this now onto a sheet of A3 300 GSM Fabriano watercolor paper. I've used my guillotine to cut it into a neat square. This design, Dejans tells me, is inspired by the sky and represents clouds. He said he sees it as a bit stormy, a polluted and dangerous cloud, and that this motif has evolved from a combination of two of Dejans' recent illustrations, his claw flowers and a piece titled Masks. I will leave a link to examples of these below the video. So if you'd like, you can check out this piece's beginnings and gain additional insight into the evolution of some of Dejans' methodology. Do also check out Dejans' half of the collaboration where he is creating this piece. I also leave the link below the video. Like our last two collaborations, Dejans and I have decided to keep the same format, a square image with black line work and one additional color. Our first piece was a yellow wasp themed piece, and last time an Alice in Wonderland themed piece in red. This time, for the accent color, Dejans has chosen blues. So this piece, in shades of blue, takes on the theme of a polluted rainstorm. So just looking again at the image that Dejans has sent me, it has these spikes, the claw flowers, and a menacing quality, a surreal mechanical aesthetic as well, with these tubular shapes intersecting at vaulted junctions. In contrast, my work can be quite cutesy. The combination of edginess and cuteness is something I like to play with in my work. So beginning very loosely, sketching whatever comes to mind with my mechanical pencil, I decided to do one of my cute characters in the foreground of the piece, standing underneath a windswept umbrella with Dejans' ominous cloud overhead, the contrasting aesthetics creating a visual tension. Like our last collaboration, I'm again going to redefine and outline my pencil sketch in Indian ink with my glass pen. I used a little ceramic bowl with a thick piece of foam sponge in the bottom, filled with water until the sponge is completely saturated. This provides a soft padding to rinse and clean the delicate glass tip. The colours I'm using are the black, the ultramarine and the blue by 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐼 and Newton. These inks are formulated from a series of soluble dyes mixed with a shellac binder, which makes them fast drying and transparent. Most Indian ink is water resistant when dry, but with some exceptions which I was soon to discover here when using the blues. I'm just swatching them out here to check the shades, starting out slowly when inking the piece, very carefully and bit by bit. This gives me the opportunity to redefine, tidy and sharpen the sketch. My initial pencil sketch is quite loose. I drew my character in large platform heel boots, standing in a shallow river or stream, in which I added little dead fish floating upturned in the water. I think as artists we create a visual vocabulary of motifs and styles that we keep returning to, reinventing and building on. This piece has many elements from previous works of mine, where I had been exploring themes of environmental disregard. The landscape as a backdrop takes on a hilly storybook feel, with a little cluster of houses to the right, which are drawn in a kind of toy town style. Opposite to the left of my character, I included a factory or industrial zone. There's large coolant towers like a nuclear power plant there. A cloud of emission amalgamates with Dejans cloud design, depicting a strange kind of eco-dystopian storybook narrative. The way I drew the rain was as stylized diagonal patterned lines with a raindrop pattern along them like a string of beads. It's always so interesting to see what other people see in your work. When I sent the finished image to Dejans, he said he loved that the image of the moon was like a saw. I didn't see that when I was doing it. I guess I just saw it as a wavy halo edge. Now I actually really like that it looks like a circular saw because I think it adds to that narrative of danger, corrupted nature, with this strange, intimidating, surreal moon peeping out from beneath Dejans' mechanical cloud. Above the clouds, I did a series of repetitive circles like holes through the atmosphere that peep into a starry space above the clouds, a metaphorical narrative of toxins in the air. A storm is brewing, a clash of nature and excesses of industry. Once all my line work was done, I made sure the ink was completely dry before using my vinyl eraser to clear away all traces of the original pencil sketch. The watercolours I am using are by 𝐬𝐻𝐫𝐢. This 48-piece set has 8 shades of blue, 3 of which have only very subtle variants. I started out with my favourite, Prussian blue. In its darkest, most saturated pigmentation, it's almost black and washes out to a soft blue-grey in its lightest. I began introducing this on my character's hair, where I have already added some black contour hatching. I also used this colour in watered down hues on her coat and umbrella. Trying to use contrasting hues of blue, I used a bright ultramarine wash to introduce colour to the surrounding landscape. And here is where you will see how the ink starts to disperse into the watery wash. Because this is a very watery image, I felt that it was okay that the blue ink dispersed into the painting this way, as it created some nice textures, especially in the pool where it created subtle watery bleeds around the line work of the ripples. I was careful to go around the fish so I could define them by keeping part of the white page and introducing a contrasting hue of blue that would be different from the shade in the water. In this piece, even the landscape is blue, so it would seem to be a bit of a blue moonlit scene, or perhaps even some strange eco-dystopian atmosphere. Once I had painted the foreground, the piece was starting to feel very visually busy. I had drawn a kind of dripping backdrop just beneath the clouds, with the idea that there's some kind of atmospheric oozing going on, a curtain of added movement behind the whole piece. To define this, I created a flat area of black, which created a depth of field into the distance and added balance between the sky and the horizon. I used my refillable Penalt brush pen to create this black night background, which created a dramatic contrast against all the differing shades of blue and whites. This pen takes cartridges, and I actually ran out during this. A fresh cartridge is such a joy to use. This is one of my favourite tools, putting down a nice flat black. It's so precise and has a flexible, sharp, almost pinpoint tip to get into tiny corners. The ink's waterproof as well when it's dry. It's very flat and highly pigmented, leaving a finish that shows no brush strokes. So, akin to the line inking, I carefully, bit by bit, put down this flat black colour with the pen. The result of this really changed the way I felt about the piece, moving it in a more satisfying direction. I don't always know how a piece is going to turn out from start to finish. That's the way it is with art and me. I more often than not just dive into a piece without any preliminary sketches. My undersketch is my preliminary sketch. I sketch it down and just experiment. Then I'm intuitively finding my way to an expression or a feeling within the piece, one of which I'm not always aware of when I'm starting out. It's a little challenging at times, finding a visual solution to balance the composition towards a feeling or a vision of whatever it is that you're trying to create. When painting, it's a push and pull, experimenting with different ways of putting down colour to create delicate, even stylized areas of tones. I have some techniques that are my go-to techniques, little details like the way I do the shines in the hair, or my tendency to focus my areas of saturated colour towards the inner edges of shapes. But I always try and keep a willingness for randomness, a freedom of play, a knowing that in art most mistakes can be painted over, and in this way you will be open to discover new techniques, to add to your visual language and make your own. Over time we get more practice in this language and really refine our own dialect and styles. Once this painting was quite dry, I decided I wanted to do more detailed highlights with my white gel pen. I like to use this because it allows me a lot more control than I can get with just white on a paintbrush, especially for some of those raindrop designs. It gave me the opportunity to balance the raindrop designs, which were getting a little too chaotic. Though I don't mind the chaos, I feel it fits the narrative, and there are enough flatter contrasting areas of tone to create a balance. I like an image that you have to maybe look at for a little while before you see all of the elements in it. A piece that you could sit at and see something that maybe you didn't notice the first time you saw it. You might first see the cute girl in the foreground, but then you notice the clouds, and then the buildings, all these narrative elements weaving a tapestry of motifs, patterned movement, or symbols that invite the viewer into their own imagination. We're coming to the end of my time lapse now, and I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to say a huge thank you to Dejans for doing another collaboration with me and sending me this beautiful, surreal, mechanical cloud design to work with. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Do have a wonderful and inspiring week, and I hope to see you all again soon for another video. Bye bye!